and welcome back to Hank's Yarncast. My name is Casey. I'm the owner and operator of Hank's Yarn Parlor in Belfast. Thank you so much for joining me. You're very welcome here. This is just where I sit and talk a little bit about my knitting and any kind of shop news that's going on. Absolutely roasting in Belfast this weekend, guys. It's I've come in early to do this morning as well, and I normally would be here a little bit later. It's about 8 o'clock in the morning right now. I'm never here this early. The sunshine is absolutely blazing through my front window here, which is great. It's slightly roasting me alive, and it has made the lighting situation a little bit tricky, but I'm trying not to complain because I actually do really enjoy the warm weather. So gives me an excuse to wear some of my summer knits. I feel like the weather here, the summers can be really temperamental. We don't get great summers here. Kind of get like little pockets of 2-3 days of nice sunny dry weather, and you always kind of feel like I don't get enough wear out of my summer knits. So I'm not complaining. I'm very happy about that. I'll tell you about the one that I'm wearing in just a moment here. But first, let me tell you about some classes that are coming up at the shop here. So 30th of July, end of this month, is our beginners crochet class. So this is sort of a taster session in this one, and we are going to be making some fabulous wind spinners. I've got another one here as well. It's a bit skinnier, a bit longer, a bit lighter weight yarn in this one. So this class is really great if you've been thinking about learning how to crochet and you've never held a hook before. Maybe you don't even knit. Maybe you're not even coming from that background. Although if you're here, you probably are, but maybe not. So that class will kind of teach you all the basics, how to hold your hook and your yarn, how to get started with your chain, how to double crochet, how to treble crochet, even how to do some increases, and how to make a tassel if you've never done that before. It's really simple and it's quite fun. After beginners crochet is beginners knitting. That is on the 6th and 13th of August. If anybody has ever been pestering you to teach them how to knit, that's the one you want to point them to. And then at the end of August is our double knitting classes back. We haven't done this one in a while, but I've had some requests for it. So if you're not familiar, double knitting is sort of a technique where you work two sides of the fabric at once, and it's reversible. So kind of all of the, it's most commonly done in at least in 2 colors. You can definitely make a reversible stockinette piece in 1 color, but just kind of to demonstrate what's really going on with it, we're going to use 2 colors to make a really lovely little pot holder stroke trivet. So that class is, I would say, really suitable for intermediate, like kind of improver level knitters. Probably wouldn't start off beginners with this. It would be helpful if you kind of have got a little bit of knitting under your belt and you can kind of wrap your head around how the stitches are being made across the row in terms of kind of how each strand of yarn links those stitches together. If you've got a little bit of color work under your belt, actually, that would kind of give you a little bit of an advantage here, but it's not strictly necessary. So you can find the details for all of those classes on our website under the events tab. All of the dates, times, and pricing and booking is all on there. So have a look. And just so you guys know, I just wanted to point out, because a lot of people have been asking lately, all of our classes do include the materials. Actually, there is one exception to that rule where I think I asked you to bring stuff in, but that's for like that would have been for kind of learning different cast on and cast bind off techniques that work together. So you kind of bring your own materials for that one, and it's the one exception to the rule. But just in case you're wondering, the rest of our classes, unless they state otherwise, will always include the materials in the cost. The beginners class will also include either the crochet hook or the knitting needles that are required as well. So those ones you just have to bring yourself. Right. I think that is, oh, actually there is a little bit more shop news. I just wanted to throw an update in here. I am going to be taking the next week off, so the shop will be closed. I'm ready for a break, and seeing as it's the July holiday here in Belfast, seems like a good time to take one. Hopefully I'll be able to take advantage of this lovely weather that we're getting. Yeah, so definitely you can place online orders. They will be fulfilled just as soon as I'm back in the shop on the 22nd of July. And then when I get back, also by that time, I will be kind of completely restocked. I've got loads of stuff en route to restock as we were getting a little bit low there. So lots of summer yarns replenished. The BC Garn Lino, which is their 100% linen. I've got even a couple new colors in. There's also a new range from Rosario's coming, which I talked about in the last podcast. We were looking at a couple different ranges there. I've decided to start with the Atlantico range, which is their cotton and sea cell. Sea cell is a type of lyocell material which is derived from seaweed. So that's super exciting, a little bit different for us in here. I've never had anything like that in the shop before. And it does come in some stunning colors, so I'm looking forward to getting that in. Yeah, I think that's all the news that I had to share. So I guess I will just stuck into what I've been knitting. Don't have any finished objects for you guys this month, but I am well on my way with a fabulous cardigan that I can't wait to show you. But I'm going to tell you about this top first, actually. So the top that I'm wearing, stand up actually so you can kind of see it. It's just like a little kind of vest top. Dips a bit in the back. There's also, if you can see, a bit of a V-neck in the back here. It's not going to focus. There we go. So this is the Queen's Cami by Tori Yu, and I've done this in the BC Yarn Lino. So that's 100% linen yarn. It's about a 4-ply kind of sport weight. I've actually got some here just beside me, so I'll lift one of these. This is a fabulous color. This magenta is absolutely gorgeous. Probably my favorite summer yarn. I mean, I know I keep saying that all my yarns are my favorite yarn, but this one I really, really love working with linen for summer garments. It's very light and drapey and breathable, and I feel like it just, for some reason, feels a bit lighter to me than cotton does. Probably imagining that. It probably isn't at all, but just kind of how I feel about it. Now, one thing that if you've never worked with linen before, that might put you off is that when it comes kind of just ready in the ball or the hank, it can be quite stiff feeling, a bit rough feeling. But this will soften up really, really quickly, even just as you are working with it. And then once it's washed and blocked, it'll soften down even more. So I do usually kind of keep this top hanging around the shop as a sample so that people can tell the difference, because the difference between how this feels in the ball and how it feels once it's knitted up or crocheted up is so entirely different. It's kind of wild. Like you can almost, that was the paper. I was just wondering if I hold this to my mic, can you like hear how crunchy it is? I don't know if you can hear that or not, but yeah, one of my favorites, and I have been totally restocked on that as well. So a couple new colors in it. You can check that out on our website or pop to the shop. Well, I suppose you'll be popping to the shop when I get back, because this episode won't air until tomorrow, and by then I'll be on holiday already. So really simple kind of, it's bottom up, this pattern, really simple knit. It's got a bit of an A-line kind of shape to it, just slightly, and I really enjoy how she actually, rather than using increases and decreases in this pattern, the designer has changed the needle size kind of gradually as you work your way up. So you start on a looser needle at the bottom and gradually get a smaller needle kind of as you work your way up. And what this means is that your gauge at the bottom is going to be a little bit looser. So the kind of bottom section will flare out a little bit and it'll start getting tighter and tighter gradually as you kind of work your way up, which also means that kind of as you work your way up the top, it gets a little bit more modest. So by the time you're in the bust area, it's dense enough to kind of cover you. But it does make for a really nice, flowy and like light, breezy, summery top. It's absolutely my favorite to wear in this weather. I adore it. I've been thinking about making a few more. It was a struggle to pick which color to do this. So this colorway is called Khaki, and it's like a silvery sage green kind of color. It's not what I would call khaki at all, but there are some really, really fabulous kind of neutral tones and also a lot of jewel tones in this, and they just have a way of kind of, the linen kind of makes them seem a little bit iridescent, similar to what like you would get out of a mercerized cotton, which I really enjoy. So definitely if you're looking for super kind of simple, quick knit, it's on fairly small needles, but it didn't take me that long to do. I guess it kind of depends on how your comfort level with smaller needles is, because by the time you get up to here, I think it's a 3mm needle, which intimidates a lot of people for garments. Like it might take an absolute century, but also by the time you're up here, you're starting to divide these sections, so they're not kind of the whole body. So yeah, starting bottom up in the round, and then once you get kind of up to the armpit, that's where you would split, and then you're working kind of the right side, left side, and then same in the back, and then it's just a 3-needle bind off to join the straps, which is just kind of in the back a little bit here. Yeah. No, I think this is kind of my go-to. I've actually been thinking for a while about knitting another summer top, as you do. I've been thinking about this since May. I think that podcast I kind of discussed some ideas that I had for summer tops, and I still haven't made up my mind which one I want to make. And I've actually been thinking now that for a change, I think I might try to do a crochet garment. I've never made a crochet garment before, so I'm thinking since I couldn't make up my mind on a knitting pattern, maybe I will shift gears and look for a crochet pattern instead, and just I kind of just want something. I haven't quite made up my mind if I'm looking for maybe just a cardigan that I can throw kind of over my shoulders, or maybe just like a tee or a pullover of some sort, but I'm looking, I think, for something that's a little bit more open and kind of lacy, eyelet-y kind of vibe, I think is what I'm going for anyway. So haven't done a terrible lot of research into patterns for that one, but I have been kind of saving a few bits and bobs on Ravelry and Instagram, and I'll kind of look into them in a little bit more detail, I think, while I'm on holiday here, and see if I can decide on what to make. In the meantime, since I couldn't decide what summer top to make, I dove into making a cabled cardigan for the autumn, as you do. So I'll show that to you now. Now, you might recall I've talked about this cardigan on the podcast before. It's probably been a little while, but I actually bought this pattern. Sorry, let me back up just a little bit and we'll tell you what the pattern is. First of all, so this is the Bee's Knees cardigan by Thea Coleman. I'll throw a photo up here. And I had purchased that pattern over a year ago, like March last year, I think it was. And you know, just the sample photo really caught my eye, like that golden color and the cables. So this cable kind of comes all the way kind of up either side of the button placket and around the shoulders and back down. Really interesting construction. Hadn't seen anything like it before. Really, really loved the color. And kind of knew that I wanted something similar. I wasn't sure I wanted that exact shape, but I definitely wanted something kind of gold, mustard, yellow. And then it took me the better part of the year to figure out which yellow I wanted to use, like which yarn I wanted to use, because I was really struggling. I could either find the right color that it wasn't the right weight, or it wasn't the right fiber, or just something that the universe was not aligning on that one at all. But when I brought in the Balram you would note a few months ago, and I made the Creole Cowl by Yusola Teague, so you probably, if you've been watching the podcast, you'll remember that one. I ended up with about half a skein, maybe a little bit less than half, left over from that cowl. And I really thought to myself, I think that's the color, which is this color. So I did end up just swatching with what I had left over, because what I had left over, sorry, I'm going to back up a little bit again. So the pattern is written for an Aran weight. And I think it called for my size. I'm doing the third size. I think it was 1,200 meters that it called for, which for a large cabled cardigan, is actually quite reasonable. But yeah, so what I had in the window was the DK weight. But I do feel like this is kind of a little bit on the bulky side for it's a chunky DK. We all know how I feel about yarn weights and their labels, but I just thought, since I had kind of that leftover bit of skein from the Creole Cowl, that I would go ahead and swatch and just see. Now, they do also make this yarn in an Aran, so in the same color, so I knew that I could get that if need be, if I needed a bulkier yarn. But since I had it on hand, and since I think this is a little chunky, and the gauge of the pattern is around 20 stitches per, so that's even like a little bit dense for an Aran weight, I just thought, what do we got to lose? Well, we'll give it a try. If it's too loose and open, then I'll go ahead and order the Aran weight one, and we'll use that. But luckily, it didn't come to that. Actually, swatching with the DK weight came out absolutely perfectly. It was exactly the kind of fabric that I was looking for. Got gauged, no bother. So yeah, just set off. And this is where we're at so far. So this cardigan is also a bottom up. So it kind of starts off, well, it starts off at the hem, and then you're working your way up with the cable kind of on either side, and then you're just working this all as one piece across the back. It's got this lovely, lovely texture across the back there. I actually thought from the photos before I bought the pattern, I actually thought that this was like a double moss stitch on the back, but it's not quite. It's similar, but it's kind of it gives a similar texture. I don't want to give away the pattern. It gives a similar texture, but it's not actually double moss. It actually kind of spreads it out a little bit, if you will. Yeah, and then it's got this really intricate cable that just kind of crisscrosses all the way up. I will say that I did need the chart for these cables the whole way along. Usually once I've kind of done the chart repeat a couple of times, it's in my head and I'm good to go. And it's not an overly complicated one, but I just think that the way that the cables kind of entwine with each other and overlap, in most patterns they're symmetrical, and in this one they're not. I kind of assumed that they would be. I think most of the ones that I've knit have been. But yeah, I mean, like at first glance, they look like they more or less are. And they are kind of always coming to the center, but I suppose just in a somewhat of an unexpected way. So I did need to kind of keep the chart handy the whole time that I was working that, but it's not a very big chart. It's not a long one. And it's not hard. Most of them are 2x2 cables for the most part. So for the most part, you could probably get away without even a cable needle if that's your style. Now I did also make the decision to add pockets to this, because we all know I've been complaining lately that most of kind of my bigger, chunkier cardigans that I would wear as outerwear, constantly looking to put my hands in them or stick my phone in my pocket or something like that, and it's not there, and it's just been annoying. So I've been kind of going back and doing some surgery on older cardigans as well, and I'm just making more of a good effort now when I make a cardigan to really consider, do I want pockets on this? And if so, let's go ahead and modify it. Now, it's easy enough to put patch pockets on, or even afterthought pockets that are kind of have a horizontal opening. But this time I decided that I would actually like something more of like a slash pocket that had a vertical opening. So how I've done this is I kind of worked up to, I decided where I wanted to place the pocket, worked up to that stage. I actually cast on a few extra stitches to do kind of like a little band to edge it with. This is kind of, it's technically ribbing, but the way that it's the way that it sit, it just looks like double knitting, which has given it a fairly good structure. But that just means that our pocket edges aren't going to curl, and the yarn. So because I've kind of got one on either side of the pocket, they'll overlap. And then I think what I'm actually going to do, I could either knit a pocket and sew it on, or pick up stitches and knit a pocket onto the inside. But I think what I'm actually going to do is go through my fabric stash and find some scraps and sew myself a wee fabric pocket and just sew it in. I think that they're just a little bit more serviceable that way. They won't stretch as much. So because this is already kind of close to the bottom of the cardigan, if you knitted it, it might, particularly, you know, if you put something like your phone or something in it that's a little bit weighty, that it would kind of drag the pocket down, and then it might end up kind of peeking out the bottom of the cardigan, and I didn't want that. So yeah, I think I'm gonna sew myself some pockets and sew them in. Now, where are we at with this? So I've done the right side. I'm just about done the left side as well. So I split some time ago. This is actually working up so much faster than I thought it would as well. I've cast this on about 3 weeks ago, I think, maybe 3.5. Haven't actually had a terrible amount of time to knit on it in that 3 weeks either. There's things between selling my house and just trying to get things done around the shop. Haven't had an awful lot of time to be really knitting. So I'm very pleased with how quickly this has been working out, particularly considering it's got that all over texture and it's got a cable panel on each side. I thought this was going to take a lot longer. So delighted with that. It's also, for some reason, taking up a lot less yarn than I feel like it should be. So I'm just about done the body. I think I've got about, I think, 8 more rows on the left front, and then the left front will be attached to the back left shoulder, and that'll be kind of the main body done. Just about. So the only step after this, so basically how the construction on this works, this is really interesting. So you're knitting bottom up, and then when you get to, you separate for the sleeves basically, and then you're knitting the front, and then there's a little bit of shaping goes on kind of at the back panel and then the front panel, and then those kind of meet. I've done a 3 needle bind off to join my shoulders. The pattern actually recommends that you bind them off and then mattress stitch them together, but I just didn't really see the point in that. So I've gone ahead and done this 3 needle bind off because I think that it's neater. It definitely is neater than my seaming up of knitted garments. So I'm hoping that won't come back to bite me. I don't see why it should. The whole point is just that it's together. So, and I think it looks exactly the same as if you would have mattress stitched it. So I don't think that's going to create an issue. So that's what you do with kind of like the edge of the couple of stitches. There's a little bit of that textured stitch that goes kind of towards the outside of the shoulder. Now the cables, that cable strip kind of comes up and over the shoulder, and the two of them meet in the back. And then you're going to, so you kind of got to knit those strips. They continue on separately. They meet in the middle and you graft them together. And then you seam kind of that opening down between, kind of along the back shoulders here. There's going to be kind of where the back meets the cable panel that comes across it. Hopefully I'm explaining that okay. And then after that, we'll get the sleeves picked up and then the button band. Now, I'm a little bit nervous about these cable panels meeting in the back, mostly just because that's trying to kind of match a row gauge now with a stitch gauge that was this way. So I think just trying to make sure that you're getting them to meet in the middle without, they need to meet in the middle. Now she says in the pattern that after so many of the cable kind of repeats, when they start getting closer, that you kind of just change to doing like a 2x2 sort of ribbing, which is what they started out as at the very bottom kind of hem here, and then meet them in the middle. But of course that's not quite good enough for me. I don't really like the idea of just having this extra little bit of 2x2 where the cables meet, where they're suddenly not intertwining anymore. I think is just going to look a little bit weird. I think that'll put me off a bit. So I'm trying really hard to get them to meet in the middle of a cable repeat kind of block, if you will. But considering the row gauge versus kind of how many stitches I have to work across the back, so basically those cable stitches have to fit into this section when they meet in the middle. So I'm a little bit nervous. I might need an extra row here or there in the middle. So we'll just have to see how that pans out. I'm kind of determined to just make the cable meet in exactly the middle as much as possible and not have too much of that 2x2 where it's just not intertwining with each other, because I think it'll look weird. But yeah, that's the next kind of little challenging bit of this. So I'm just about done the body, and then sleeves and the button band. Now, when I said earlier that the pattern calls for 200 meters approximately, 1,200 meters approximately. I think it actually was a little bit over that, 1,200 and change. Anyway, so I was expecting to need 6 skeins of this. These are just over 200 meters a skein, and plus the little bit extra that I had left over from my cowl. Now, believe it or not, so I started with a little bit that I had left over from the cowl. I think by the time I had done my swatch, there was probably about 30, maybe 40 grams left. And then there's 2 more skeins in here. I have just wound and attached the 3rd skein. Yeah, so like this whole thing is not even 600 meters yet. I don't understand. So I feel like either the pattern is off, or I think more likely the yardage or the meterage on the Bahramu might be a little bit more than it says it is, because like there's just no way. And especially like with the cables and the all over texture, I can't wrap my head around how this could possibly be like less than 600 meters of yarn. It doesn't make any sense. So that's definitely been a bit of a mind boggle, but I'm not going to complain if it takes less yarn. If it takes less skeins than advertised, I'm going to be totally fine with that. I have a feeling that it'll probably take this one and maybe it'll take at least one more, but like, as I say, I've literally just started this skein. And then there's the sleeves and the button band to do. Now it does have that kind of really voluptuous shawl color that'll be so cozy when it gets a bit cooler. But yeah, I don't even think that that's going to take up that much more yarn. So I think, yeah, by the time we're all said and done, we might have been through less than 4.5 skeins to get this finished. I'll be astounded if that's the case, but I shall not complain. So yeah, absolutely delighted with how this is working on. It is getting a little bit heavy and kind of toasty to be working on in this weather, so I'm not sure how much of that I will do while I'm on break here, because yeah, it's a bit hot. It's a bit hot, but I am like really looking forward to getting it finished as well. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so the only other thing that I've really kind of had time for to be working on the last couple of weeks, you may recall that I had said a while back that I was going through my kind of pile of finished objects that aren't quite right and need a little bit of fine tuning, I suppose, or a little bit of a redo on some of the finishing. Just garments that I don't reach for because they're not quite perfect, or they're just, something about them just giving me the ick, and I'm like, no, I don't want to wear that until I deal with it. So we're trying to deal with those issues. Most of them are because things like my bind offs are too tight, particularly around things like sleeve cuffs or the neckline. So this is a prime example. I've been meaning to get to this one. I keep mentioning this on the podcast. I think it's been like 3 or 4 months now that I keep going, oh yeah, I'm going to get to that. Anyway, so this is the Rizzo Blouse by Poison Girls. I'll throw a photo of this up here. So she's not on Ravelry anymore. She's actually moved and got her own website, but you can still search her patterns on Ravelry. In any case, I'll have a link below to where you can find that pattern. So she does a lot of kind of like vintage inspired shapes and that sort of thing. And I absolutely adore this top. It looks super cute on. It's really flattering. I would love to put it on right now and model it for you, but I'm going to tell you a funny story. So this was one of those ones where the neckline was too tight. So I knit this at the very start of the pandemic, like over 5 years ago. And at that time, I was kind of had discovered the tubular bind off, or the Italian bind off, if you like, which is really class for 1x1 rib. And it's pretty much my go-to bind off now. Was maybe not that practiced at it, so I did have a bit of a tension issue, and a lot of the time I was binding it off too tight. Now, this one, the collars and hems and stuff on it are 2x2 rib. And the method for binding off 2x2 rib is just a little bit different. And actually, there's a few different methods, to be fair. At the time that I knit this, I did one where basically has you reorientate the stitches so that they're not in a 2x2 order, but they're in a 1x1 order, and then you just use the kind of standard Italian bind off. And it looks all right. It's not my favorite. Actually, these ones I haven't touched yet. So if I hold that up, you can maybe see that you still do, like the edge just kind of doesn't look like a regular tubular bind off. It's not invisible. Excuse me. And yeah, I wasn't super thrilled with it. Now when I finished my iris pullover, that one was also 2x2 rib, and I was determined this time that I was going to find the proper way to bind that off. I was going to find the perfect bind off for it, because I avoided 2x2 rib for so long because of this. So I did find a method, and it looks a lot nicer. It's still not quite invisible, but it's definitely a lot closer to kind of the standard tubular bind off, I think. And it allows you to keep the stitches in the 2x2 orientation, and it just changes the sequence of how you bind them off. It's a little bit more involved and a little bit trickier to get your head around, but it works. So I thought to myself, I'm going to go back, okay, because I bound this off too tight in the first place. So I could get it over my head, but just barely. And it's kind of one of those things, like with the shape of this, because the neckline it's meant to sit really quite close and high up around the neck. So you don't want it to be like really open and gaping, but it still does have to get over your noggin. So I kind of thought to myself, well, I just bound that off too tight, so I will go back and redo the bind offs on it. So this is going to be a bit of a really long story, but I unpicked the bind off. Now, normally I would not recommend unpicking sewn bind offs of any description. They're an absolute pain in the bum, and life is frankly too short in most cases. However, just because I could see where the end of the thing was and where the yarn had been kind of woven in, I just thought to myself, something came over me, and I decided, well, I'll just see how difficult this is going to be to unpick. I'll just grab a spare needle and see if I unpick a few stitches, this is going to be a big pain. And actually, I think because this has a lot of silk content in it, it's really smooth yarn, so it wasn't actually that big of a deal to pull it out. And it's only, I think the collar around this is like 96 stitches, so it wasn't loads. So I did end up just unpicking it. And then I set off about my new bind for it. Okay, so I could just about get it over my head before. Somehow, by the time I got to the end of this bind off, I couldn't get it over my head at all. It's actually tighter than when I started. I don't know what happened there. I was being really careful about my tension as well, but yeah, it's like there's no give in it whatsoever anymore. So we're gonna unpick it again. But I think actually, I don't know that I will unpick it. I think I might actually just take the whole collar back, the whole neckline back, and pick up just a couple more stitches, like maybe 4, I think, which would give me about an extra, not quite half an inch, like maybe an extra, yeah, half inch, centimeter and a half, maybe. Like not even. um, and that is, yeah, I know that doesn't sound like a massive difference, but I think it'll just be just a little bit easier to get over my head, and it'll still sit where it's supposed to and end up quite close. I think I'm just going to go ahead and, yeah, pick up a couple more stitches than I had, because like even the bottom of this where I picked those stitches up as well is quite tight. There's not a lot of give there. I don't know if it might be the case that when I picked those stitches up, that the first, you know, when you pick stitches up and that kind of first row or two, it looks really gapey and wonky and awful. And I think that I maybe have a tendency to really want to pull those stitches a little bit tighter than I should, because I don't want them to be gapey, rather than just trusting in the process and knowing that, you know, in 4 or 5 more rows, it's going to settle down, it'll even out, and everything will be fine. So, but yeah, I think I just need to go back and do the whole neck again. I didn't get to the sleeve, so obviously these need to come out as well. The hem isn't terrible. This is top down, so the hem was bound off as well. You kind of come back and pick up the neckline after. This fits my body okay, but it's also one of those things where, like, I can get it over me, but because this has no give, and I feel like it should, it's a little bit bothersome, but it's not as bothersome as the bit that is strangling my chubby arms and making it a struggle to get it over my head. So I don't know if I'll bother doing this bit again. I don't know if this is enough of a problem to put me off wearing it. What's putting me off wearing it mostly is the neckline and the sleeves. They're just a little bit too tight. So that's where I'm at with that. I was hoping to show you, hey, look, I fixed my blouse, but turns out I've given myself a little bit more homework than I had to be. So back to the drawing board on that one. Yeah, that's all I've got for you guys this month. It's just been a little bit wild for me, between just trying to manage the shop and some personal stuff that's been going on in the background, but all of that has thankfully been dealt with now, so I feel like I can just be a little bit more present here, and I'll have a lot more time to actually be knitting. So hopefully next time I'll have a few more things to show you. I'm also kind of in the background. I haven't been chatting about this too much, but I have been working away at developing some new classes. So I've been kind of thinking about samples for those, and like kind of playing around with samples. And what the trick about the classes for me is kind of like it's all fine and good to teach you technique, but I want to teach you technique on an actual project that you can take away and finish, so that you're not coming to just like knit a square every time, because how boring. But the project also needs to be manageable, that you can get to a state in that project during the class that you have the confidence to take it away and finish it on your own, that you're kind of happy enough getting that technique cemented down. So it's trying to develop projects that show that technique without too much prep work. Like even, you're looking at small projects like socks and hats. A lot of what takes up the class time in that is like knitting brims or cuffs to get them started, and that's so there's a lot of that goes on before you even get into the technique that you came here to learn. I'm trying to minimize that, so we spend most of the time actually learning the technique and a lot less time faffing around, knitting ribbing that you already know how to do. So yeah, there's been a little bit of me faffing around in the background trying to figure out how to make that happen. I'm also still doing a little bit of dabbling with the pattern writing, mostly still sticking to accessories. I've got a pair of mittens that I'm developing right now. I don't want to give too much away about them though, because they're still a ways away from being finished. And yeah, they're not ready to share yet, but there is work going on in the background. So hopefully by autumn time, actually, I'll have the mitts kind of more or less sorted out, and that'll be something that we can share on the podcast with you. Anyway, until then, thank you so much for joining me. If you would like to know any more about the events that are coming up, you can jump onto Hank's website under the events tab to get all the details for those there. There's also a link in the description below, as well as the links to the patterns that we looked at today. Is there links to anything else that I need to put up? I don't think so. Hopefully I haven't forgotten to tell you guys anything, but yeah. So shop is closed from the 12th of July until the 21st of July. I will be back on Tuesday the 22nd. Normal hours from then. If you want to place an online order, I will ship it out first thing when I get back on the 22nd. And until then, thanks so much for joining me, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye.